Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Academy webinar. For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Alina Bonadonna, and I'm, as always, thrilled to be your moderator today. And why I'm so happy today? Because I see one of the best speakers from last year joining us today as well. Hi, Bijan, how are you?
Hi, fine, thank you. Very nice to see you again.
Likewise, and for those who never met Bijan before, just a brief introduction of himself. He's a global director of restaurant and distribution food safety at McDonald's Corporation. And just a quick note from myself, as always, before we begin, let's do a quick technical check. Please click on the reaction icons at the bottom left corner of your screen to confirm that you can interact with the platform. And as always, I see hearts, claps. Yes, yes, people are here, and that's brilliant and awesome. And as always, my huge gratitude to Nemis Technologies for supporting such young but super powerful educational project like Academy. So, Bijan, are you ready?
I am ready.
So, let's give just a warm virtual welcome to Bijan, and we are all eager to learn from you. The stage is yours.
Thank you so very much. I cannot see anybody's faces or anybody's comments. I hope I will not overtake, and I'm sure I'll be prompted to slow down or speed up if necessary. So, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you very much for allowing me to present. It's always a pleasure to be online and share with everybody what I believe to be the right ways forward. But of course, one shoe does not fit all. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and this is just one example, I believe, that could lead everybody to success in establishing a leadership role in food safety when it comes to strategies around digital systems and the digital age we're going to. Now, on the cover, you can see there's a little uh, blue sky with the stars at the bottom underneath my picture. That's just to let you know that the world's our oyster and there's much more out there than is in here. So you need to look out and look out of the box and start getting as many things as you can into your system to make yourself better and not be afraid of something that we cannot see and what seems to be beyond our reach, but it never is. The ones who are skeptical of what we say, they always say pie in the sky, not possible. Do not believe that. Reach for the stars and you will actually gain them. So, with that said, I'm going to take you through four headings before I summarize everything. As in the presentation title, it says, I'm going to talk about leadership, what it is, what it means, and what different types exist. I'm not going to do an exhaustive list, but I'm going to take you through some of the ones. Then into the digital world, what do we see today and what can we see tomorrow, and the challenges that we might actually experience. Then touching on culture, we are in an age where food safety culture or any kind of culture associated with food safety is top of mind and everyone's talking about it, which is a fantastic situation to be in because it does have a significant effect on the way we approach problems, opportunities, challenges that we see in our way. And then, of course, lastly, onto empowerment. How do we empower ourselves and others to be able to achieve the goals that we set ourselves or those who have been set for us and taking us forward in a leadership position? And then, of course, I will summarize in a slide what we've been speaking about today. And after that, we're going to Q&A, of course. So, leadership. Here's about five different examples of what leadership actually could mean, but it could mean something completely different to yourself. For example, top left corner, the leader is in front and people follow, rally the person forward. And this used to be the cases in the olden days when there was war, the leader was right at the front and would go forward. There are, of course, good and bad points to all of that strategy, but it is a strategy that has been shown to be successful. Or it can be the one at the top there with the one leader distinctly identified in a group, and people look at that leader for giving them direction, giving them the way forward. Or you could have the one down the bottom on the left, where the leader is identified very clearly, but is not necessarily the one in front, but rallies the team to go ahead, and they just follow the words that are presented to go forward. It could even be the one on the right-hand side where the leader actually approaches individual members and gets them ready to go forward one by one by one. And there are other ones where right in the middle there is a leader in there. But which one is the leader? Are they all leaders? Is the leader identified? But the point is they are actually going forward in the right direction, because some all good leaders understand that the whole team matters. It's not about the individual. If the leader does not have the support of the actual team members, nothing will get done. The leaders are often looked upon as role models, and they are looked upon to give them the right inspiration to take them forward. And that comes from sometimes because the person is very charismatic, and also it comes from the point of how well does the leader support their team. And when they do that, they gain the respect, they gain all of the values that we look in at a leader. But that leads us to understanding how does the leader identify technology. But technology is something that can be very easy to understand, very scary. At this present moment, we are looking at such things as smart equipment, voice face recognition, artificial intelligence, or virtual reality. There is much more out there, of course, but just the four brief examples of what these are. Now, smart equipment, we're talking about a piece of equipment that can have an algorithm built in that actually can detect when it is about to go out of calibration, gives you an alarm, allowing it to go forward, or it self-corrects.
I do apologize, Bijan. Your slides looks like not moving if you are on the
Ah,
second slides. Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
I am on the digital world one. You can't see that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Hang on. Can you see it now?
Still, yes, a digital world now.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
We'll keep this. Okay.
All fine.
Uh,
Thank you so much.
Lovely. So in the digital world, we are looking at these four different areas, just for examples. So in smart equipment is what we talk about, an equipment that can self-calibrate, for example, or it understands when it requires to be calibrated and alarms or gives a notification, or can transfer through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth information across into another system via cloud-based system or any other system. And of course, we have voice and face recognition. We see this in our phones. We see it when we are going banking. These are great technologies which go away from having passwords, trying to remember your passwords, and become very good at actually helping us to be more secure and faster. Artificial intelligence, that this is something that is, in my mind, still not here today, at least not in the public domain, because artificial intelligence to me means that artificially can think and come up with new ideas. ChatGPT, for example, in my opinion, is not artificial intelligence because it gathers the information out there and regurgitates them in a different format. It does not create new, it just brings what is already out there. If we're talking artificial intelligence, then that would be a self-thinking machine, which we don't have that in my opinion yet. However, we have things that are close to it, which can actually use algorithms, data analysis to come up with good, intelligent answers. And of course, then we have virtual reality, which really help us understand and train and see things in areas where previously would not be possible. Training is excellent in this area, or working in an area which is very dangerous to work in, but you just require to see what's happening without actually being there. These are new challenges that allow us to face them head on. But the most important part is that we mustn't be afraid of the new technologies, and we must be inquisitive and actually go and look and see what they are. At the same time, we must also question them. not just accept what they give us as facts, because just like everything else, nothing is perfect. So we need to be vigilant. So when people talk about artificial intelligence coming in and people losing jobs, it's on the contrary, it adds jobs because you need to have somebody who understands and can interpret that data that comes from it and not replacing someone. So it actually adds to our system. But understanding digital world and understanding technologies also requires us to have a knowledge based on culture. Have you seen? I've gone to the next slide. Can you see my next slide or not?
Still not, but maybe we just need a few seconds. Already, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
So when we look at culture and how culture is, we have to make sure that we bring people together, especially leaders, bring the leaders together to work together and understand about the new technologies. Now, do you see the little picture appearing on the right-hand side or not?
Yes, yes.
It came up, yes, it came up.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go into presentation mode again. Sorry, everybody, technology, that's what happens. So, innovations that we need to look into, we have to be able to understand them, of course, but our culture sometimes tells us to be afraid of innovation. In some cultures, it embraces them. So we need to bring the leaders together to be able to understand and accept those innovations, not just to see it or hear it, but believe in that innovation, believe in that new technology. So believe in virtual reality, believe in AI, and it's not blind faith belief, but understanding the data behind it and how it works and moving forward by those factors that lead to giving us the answers to the questions that we have to allow us to overcome the challenges. And that happens by speaking to others who have used it in order to allow them to make us believe in them. In reality, any leader who wants to lead a project, a system, a strategy believes in that. And the fact that they can make us believe in them is what makes them a true leader because they're able to put what they have seen into words that the rest of us understand and then moving us forward. Because if they cannot believe, then they do not understand, and therefore they're not able to make anyone else understand. So for those things, for those reasons, we need to have innovations looked into it and believe in them. And all true leaders do believe that the only way forward is to change, because the only constant we have in our world is change. Change is constantly happening. If we do not change and stay still, effectively, we are going backwards because the rest of the world is moving forward. So therefore, we must change constantly. And as someone once said, in order for everything to stay the same, we must constantly change. Because if you want to continuously sell a product at a certain rate, you must keep innovating to be able to keep that up. If you want to maintain safety as the world around us changes, we must constantly innovate to allow for that same level of safety with the complexity that comes with those changes. But in order to have this belief, in order to be able to move this forward, we need to be empowered and empower others. So in this slide, we see empowerment. We have to make sure how do we get ourselves and others empowered enough to move forward with these technologies where we talk about. But the first and foremost thing that we need to do as leaders, if if I'm so bold to consider myself a leader, which I don't think I am, I do follow others, and sometimes we lead, sometimes we follow. But in all cases, we need to understand the strategy in which we want to set. When we've discovered the strategy that we're going to be working on, then we have to go and find the information and gather the knowledge base to understand what technology is and then to believe in that technology. as I was saying earlier, within the cultural changes, to learn to share with other leaders, to learn what it is that I need to do and what tools I need to have to allow myself to go forward. When we have fully understood what is the actual advantages of those tools which are going to help me to fulfill my strategy, then I have to say that I am now the owner, taking ownership or giving ownership, empowering others or yourself. If you take ownership of it, you empower yourself. It's self-driven. But if you give ownership to someone else, it empowers them to take the lead. And of course, with ownership comes accountability. Have to be accountable for decisions that we leaders all make is a key factor in establishing a successful way forward. When we look upon how we actually make sure that this happens, it goes right back to the point of the leader quality. An inspired situation comes from an inspirational person. So that leader that you want yourself to be at the beginning, whether you want to be the one that leads clearly, the one to be part of the team, the one that goes individually looking at people on the technology that fits into your strategy, with the knowledge base that you've gained and taken the ownership, you carry with it the accountability that comes with it. Failure or success, it does not matter, but accountability for the milestones, the goals that you have set to meet your objectives that is part of your strategy. And that helps drive all of it forward. And it's not just the fact of us talking about things, but must again believe in it and believe in it because of the data we've gained. Looking at all of these things that actually go right from the beginning of what kind of leaders we want to be and what kind of technology we want to use and the culture that fits in, and then leading to empowerment, it comes down to the point of how do we actually summarize all of these points? Well, to summarize them and go right back and forth, the leadership comes, as you saw, in many different guises. You can be the one in the front, can be one in the back, you could be watching, you could be asking people to lead. But always remember, to be a leader does not mean to be the first. It means the one that others want to follow. The one that actually wants to follow are based on very much on what is the culture of the team that you're in. Some teams like to have a clear leader in the front and rallying people forward. Some like their leaders to be part of the team. Some like them to be part of the team, but very clearly identified who they are. If you go into a meeting, for example, you can see clearly who the leader is. The leader is the one that speaks last, not first. The leader allows others to present their case and then they speak. The leaders most often do not give an answer but raise a question to allow others to think about the answers and bring it forward. They actually include everyone in the conversation and do not ignore. Most leaders, when they speak, when you listen to them, they do not use the word but they use the word and instead because it brings a positive point of view rather than negative confrontational point of view. That way, you allow everybody to be understanding of what is the leader's strategy and that the leader has taken the team on board, therefore showing that the whole team matters. It's not just about them, because without the team, there is no leader. Having established the leadership position, then the leader has to believe in the technology that they are preaching about and be able to explain that belief to others because technology is moving very, very fast at the moment. Less than half a century ago, we had a phone which was wired to the wall. We had board games. We had separate cameras. We had letters we wrote, postcards. We had calendars and we had address books. Today, all of those and more are in one smartphone. and they work much faster, much more reliable, and everyone has rather than one per household. And in fact, 50 years ago, many households across the world did not even have a phone. In fact, there are parts of the world today that some households do not have phones either. So technology moves very fast, and as leaders, we require to be on top of it, to understand it, and not be afraid of it, to actually look at the technology and reach for the stars and be able to understand which one is going to help me achieve my goals. But to do that, I need to have the team with me. And to have the team with me, I have to understand the culture. And sometimes I may need to change the culture of my team or the environment I'm living in or my own culture may be needed. But mustn't be afraid of change and therefore must not be afraid of the unknown. When we look at how cultures change about belief or being afraid or not, many years ago, people were about 200 years ago, no one knew about pasteurization. But pasteurization came, and today it is the most common way of addressing food safety, for example. However, 20 years ago, nobody knew about it. And it took many, many years for people to accept it and not question it. The same happens with any kind of technology that we use. Our cultures go in two basic places. One is to be afraid, the other is to actually capture it and use it and not be afraid. So we have to change our culture to be inquisitive, to be able to move forward as a team. Within a team, there will be people that are more afraid of change than others. But as a collective, it is the leader's position to bring those who are in disbelief into the believing mode by providing them with data, by providing them with security, by providing them with the inspiration they need that their leader is competent, has their interest at heart, and understands that this way forward actually will allow us to achieve the goals that we set. Bringing that in all together, it takes us to how do we actually empower ourselves and others? And to do that, we must all be brave and we must also seek out empowerment and not just wait until somebody empowers us. Empowering us comes naturally by leaders who train leaders, but we must also be ready to seek accountability, take ownership, therefore empowering ourselves in achieving the strategies, establishing the strategies that we want and gain and reach the goals that we are looking for. Putting all of these together, we come down to the point of new technologies are out there. We need not to be afraid of them. We need to reach out there and grab them and test them and see if they work. Make sure that they provide us with the information we need. Allow the team to be understanding, not afraid of it, trust it because they trust in their leader. The leadership taking a position based on the culture of their team, whether to be part of the team itself or to be right in the front, them following them. Or come to a point of saying we are all leaders in this team. At different times, different person will actually take the leadership position in a project or other. There are many different ways. You must find your way and the one that works for you. There is not one shoe fits all. There are so many different ways. That's what makes the beauty of the world that we are. And we must also, on top of all of this, understand as well that we must go beyond our own borders. So, not focus on just the industry we work in, but expand on it. For example, in the food industry, many of the actual technologies or innovations that are used did not originate from the food industry. Let us take a very, very, very simple one. Most restaurants, most catering areas, they actually use microfiber cloths to clean and to wipe surfaces down. But that came from the automobile industry. It was the last thing they would do to polish the car, get rid of all the dust before it goes out. So efficient that we found it useful for us as well. And that is just one example that we shouldn't be afraid of using technologies and learn from other sectors and take it on board and use it there. With all of those points that I highlighted, I hope at least some of it resonates with some of you. And if you can take away anything at all from today, the one thing I would ask you to do is to be bold, to go out there, and not be afraid of what the future would bring to you. So, thank you very much. And any questions?
Thank you so much, Bijan. As always, it was really a super inspiring presentation. And I do have a question until our guests are typing just in, and I will drop my first words. So you are talking, you were talking about leadership, and it's really super important thing. I think not just food safety culture, in every environment, it's something that business cannot work and people cannot be motivated to do what they do or inspired. What are maybe some specific strategies leaders can implement to impact in food safety performance and empower in food safety culture?
I think one of them, and talking about the digital world that we are, seeking out there a technology that adds value. And I'll give you an example. There is a hand scanner out there today that it was also presented at the GFSI. So
Mhm.
this hand scanner is one of the most newest technologies out there where it's very practical. You can actually, within very few seconds, see if you have fecal contamination on your hands or not. Only fecal contamination. Now, if you present that to a marketplace, a country, they would be afraid of using it because they would say, my God, I have bacteria in my hands. That means everything's dirty. I'm out of compliance with the regulations and so on. So at that point, taking a leadership position saying, no, wait. Let us look at what does this technology is telling us and what is the benefit it's giving us. So number one, it's giving us before I touch food if I have contamination. So therefore I wash my hands and I check again. Now I don't. So now I know I'm safe to go in. So therefore I am reducing the risk of food poisoning, helping. But I have to use the technology properly, used at the right place, understanding the technology, understanding what it tells us, and putting in the practical way of using it, and then showing what advantages, what value it adds. Then you take it forward because what you have done, you have looked at the technology, understood the technology, believe in technology, and now are able to communicate. And then we hold those who wash their hands accountable for following protocol to ensure that they do not have contaminated hands. So it is a whole series of things that you take forward. And those who have the culture of being afraid of what the regulators say, you become bold and say, well, let me be a leader now and explain this to you because I believe in it because I have the data, I have the understanding, and I can explain it. And the good thing is, some people may not believe this, but authorities are not stupid. They are educated people. They are doing a very difficult job. But as long as we make their job easy, but try to explain what we are doing, they also learn from that and move forward with that. So we're helping each other, expanding our area of knowledge and pushing it forward in a leadership position.
Yeah, and then the next comes how can food safety leaders empower frontline workers to take the exact ownership of safety practices?
Absolutely, because if we tell people, any frontline worker, why we do things, that immediately empowers them because they have knowledge, and knowledge is power. We know this. And also, if we explain to the frontline worker that what is the value that they bring, that every individual one of those, let's take McDonald's as an example. Every individual person, which is about over 1 million people globally, every individual, if they don't do things right, the whole company will collapse because we are a global brand. So a food poisoning caused by a staff and they say it's a system-wide issue, the whole company will collapse. So they have over millions of families' welfare in their hands. Because if company McDonald's goes down, that's 40,000 restaurants goes down and all the people that work there, and of course, back office and the suppliers. So giving that responsibility empowers them, give because they believe they are important and because they are important.
Definitely. And you mentioned already a couple of times technology. And technologies are really rapidly advancing every day, I think. So, really,
Yes,
that's not even about weeks, it's like daily, even hours. So,
yes.
how can food safety leaders stay ahead of rapidly advancing technologies and be able to implement it on the right way?
And this is a very good question, Alina. And it always becomes sometimes chase innovation for the sake of chasing innovation, and then capture data for the sake of capturing data. Well, that's actually is detrimental because we get overwhelmed and it becomes very costly and we don't know what to do with the results, etc. So, what we have to do is be very picky. And so when we set our strategy, what we want to achieve, then we prioritize the most highest risk area that exists. Then we look for technologies that can achieve the goals we want with risk reduction of that priority. So if hand washing is number one priority for a company, they look for innovations in that area. If shelf life monitoring is, then they do that. If it's microbiological analysis, they do that way. So depending on the food industry sector, or any sector for that matter, when one sets a strategy and comes up with the priorities, then they would go and be very picky, cherry pick which one's going to use on, and just work on that one, just step at a time. Is a common saying, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time. You cannot put the whole thing in your mouth in one go. So technology out there is like an elephant. You take a bit by bit by bit.
Yeah, definitely true. And there is another question from Stefania. Hello, Stefania. How can we engage frontline teams in digital food safety initiatives?
It's actually not that difficult because the frontline workers, most of them, especially in the catering world or the retail work, are younger, definitely younger than me, and they are already well inserted into technology. So we use technology that they are already familiar with. And even if they're not familiar with it, we approach them as if we were going to provide them with a new technology. So, how would you introduce someone with a new smartphone? How would you introduce somebody with a new camera? And so introducing them to them and start always with why. Why are we using this? And then how it's going to help us, and then show them what it is. So, why do I want to know the temperature of my products? Well, because if I don't have the right temperature, the shelf life is going to go out in a different way. I'm going to have food poisoning. How am I going to do it? I'm going to monitor it using a system that can tell me the temperature of the product constantly. What is it? Here it is, this little probe. So if you take it in a stage where why and how and what approach, it works a lot better. Now, again, like I said right in the presentation, there are more than one way of doing things, and you need to assess the culture of the person, of the people, the team that you're working with, and then take the right approach because some already know technology. Some need to introduce technology. And then if we have the older generation, so say someone who's in their 60s or 70s and not so easily wound up about technology, you need and we need to take a different approach with them than a 20-year-old.
Thank you so much. And one of my favorite topics, which is currently discussed more and more, it's a food safety culture. And why do you think is really important to view these culture changes as an ongoing process in food safety management?
Sure. Again, another good question. You're getting a good one out of me here.
I was prepared. I was
I
prepared.
I mean, Alina, you know me well enough, and you heard me say this so many times, and you mentioned it as well at the beginning. I don't believe there is anything called food safety culture. I think there's just culture, and we adapt our culture to food safety, just like we
Yeah.
adapt our culture to how we drive. So when we look at, let's, for example, for argument's sake, call it food safety culture for now. When we look at food safety culture, is how we approach our safety of our food. If it's our way of always discarding food when it just goes out of shelf life. We'll continue to do so. And we're doing it not because somebody's watching me, it's because it's a right thing to do all the time. So building that culture in, it adds in safety margins more and more and more, and it allows us to really understand that we do things because we have been taught the reasons behind it, and then added the knowledge in there, and then we do things, we do the practices, and we do it as and when we have learned it works, not because I was told to do it. If we are told to do it without understanding it, the chances are we'll make a mistake. Also, the chances are we won't do it because if the person telling me is I'm upset with them, I just won't do it out of spite. But even if we're angry with somebody and but we know the reason behind something, we can disassociate that. So the decision to do something is disassociated with the person telling us because it's associated with the reason for it, which goes back to the way of why. So if we change our culture or enhance our culture in a way of passing on knowledge, educating, so always educate first, train second. People keep talking about training. Most of the time, we're not training, we are educating. So we have to educate first, then practically train it in. And that education is the why, and the training is the how, and the equipment is the what, for example. I think that process of change culture would appropriate to riding a bicycle, watch the road, or making your food, making cake. Don't eat the raw dough because it's not. It's because it's raw, not because of the eggs. It's because of the flour. The flour is not cooked. So these are the little things that we need to understand. And here's a little brain teaser for anybody out there who can come up with an innovation. I don't know if you saw this in the GFSI or not, Elena, but if you're at home and you are touching raw chicken and then you go and wash your hands, we don't have automatic taps at home. So with the hands which got salmonella on them because you just touched raw chicken, you open the tap, you wash your hands, great, and then you dry your hands. But now you're going to close the tap, you're recontaminated.
Yeah.
How do we overcome that in homes? Knowing that the number one cause of food poisoning comes from the home. So
Yeah.
maybe we can actually talk about technology helping us in our domestic environment in that part of hand washing systems. Why do we still need to have taps at home when we can have infrared at home? Maybe that's an area we need to be really focusing on, drive down food poisoning in our public area rather than focusing on who's to blame in a restaurant or somewhere else.
Definitely, and I see so many reactions exactly on the last the last phrase, and that was actually one of the recent discussions I had with my colleagues. That unfortunately, consumers are lacking of education and instructions on how to really implement the food safety practices on the kitchen. So, if I may ask you about behavioral science, that's something you didn't mention a lot, but I do believe that you can really answer this question. Basically, how can organization practically apply behavioral science principle to influence the day-to-day decision of their staff in the food industry?
It's actually because we've been talking about culture so many years now after Frank Yanis published his book a few years ago, it has come to light that a lot of the behavioral phenotypes, what we see, are based on our culture. And if we understand the culture, we can actually use behavioral science to overcome some of the barriers that we see. Number one, I mean, this may sound controversial. I apologize to the listeners for now and the future. It becomes down to a point of ignorance. And people are racist, sexist, whateverist because of ignorance. And that ignorance, I'm not saying it in a bad sense of the word, as a word of lack of education. And being afraid of the unknown is just like technology. People are afraid of the unknown, of a different race, different person, out of their family, out of their country, because their culture is different. So they're afraid of the unknown, and therefore their behavior changes. So behavioral science actually tells us and teaches us about how to identify those differences and how to overcome them by finding the common thread and overcoming the actual um, parts that make us scared of the other unknown. And therefore, we go step forward. You see this behavior changes when people actually go abroad and travel. The ones who travel more are much more settled and stable people than those who do not. And that is something that behavioral science has taught us very clearly. The more social we are, the better we are. COVID drove us back in time because, and technology that we're using actually is driving us back in time in those areas because we are not engaging face to face. We do not recognize expressions, and therefore we are afraid of the things that we have not experienced. As a result, our behaviors are changing to the detriment of social behavior, not to the positive. I hope that kind of
Yeah,
answers your question.
of course. And I have another one. You know, probably next training should be offline. That's something that we discussed already during BRCGS this
Yes,
year. So
yes.
I do believe that just guys support me if it will be a good idea to invite Bijan offline, please, because I do believe that yes, people are reacting. So. Next question. That's very interesting what you said about like when we are traveling we are adjusting. That's definitely true. And basically if we are talking about traditional trainings, they are often focused on compliance, right? How organizations can design, for example, traditional programs that not only meet regulatory requirements but also inspire behavioral change?
And it's funny you asked that question because very much aligned to what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get back. So everybody I'm sure, everyone on the line here has faced a situation that when they have asked for face-to-face live training programs, education program, they've been hit by, we don't have the budget, first answer, or we don't have the time. And yes, we do have time. Yes, we do have the budget. It's all about prioritization. And it goes to what we were speaking earlier about, does it add value? How much of value does it add? And then what we need to do is pull out data that we have pre-COVID and explain this is what we did and that's the result that we got. This is what we do now, and that's the result we're getting now. And it is as clear as day that the face-to-face training of certain things are much, much more valuable to a company's success and progress. As a result, for example, myself, I have been given a clear go-ahead to actually do face-to-face training like I did 8 years ago. So fingers crossed, I'll be into the Middle East in about in the next quarter or so to actually do face-to-face 1 week training with our restaurant and distribution staff.
Cool, cool. And looking back, not looking back, sorry, looking ahead, if we are talking about future trends, what do you believe will be the biggest shift or advancement in food safety over the next decades?
I think the biggest shift will come on is under technology again. And everything that we do in a restaurant environment, in a factory environment, in a retail whichever way you're looking at in the food sector and looking at food safety, there are many, many parts of it that we can do automatically and have people use that data to better their system and move faster and start focusing on other things. So, for example, if you're taking temperature measurements physically, well, that's time and it's open to human interpretation and fault. If we automate that, we take that risk away, free the time of the person to do other things on quality, for example, or serving the customer, for example, or making sure another part of their job is maintained well. But there are a lot of areas in our food safety management system that can be automated very, very easily. And we need to look at those things. And not just for the sake of automation, but on the point of risk reduction, time reallocation, cost saving, sustainability. Let's just look at, for example, paper and pen. If we are looking at paper and pen, how many trees are you going to save if you go digital? Simple, just very simple. It's nothing too great. All you got to do is just put it on and today's technology can do that very easily. So let's just take, for example, you go to a bathroom in in a restaurant or anywhere. You see a little sign on the wall that says signed off, right? That this place was signed. Why can't you have that digitally? Why do you need the paper? Why just not have a little screen there and you type in that I was here, signed off? Very simple, you know? And it may not seem like a lot, but when you consider how many restaurants exist in a country, how many pieces of paper that is, it adds up very, very quickly. So it's a little thing, but there's many other areas where we as a company are looking into. And at BRCGS, at GFSI, I was speaking to others. I was speaking to Burger King. I was speaking to Yum Brands. I don't care. It's about food safety. It's about public health. And that's what we have to do. Food safety is not a competitive advantage. We work together, we help each other to make sure the public, which includes us, by the way, we are also the public. It keeps us and everybody else around us safe.
Brilliant. Really, like the best closing remark we can ever had, even like in general. It's not just regarding this presentation. I think it's very important to highlight these changes. And yeah, maybe my question would be like, how would you summarize today's talk? Like, maybe just three key points which
Sure,
you would highlight.
sure. First and foremost, thank you very much for the opportunity. And thank you to all those who are actually listening in. And I really hope it has been useful for you. I really do. And the first point I would make is that be bold. Don't hold back. Go out there, reach for the stars, and try something new. Don't do the old things because if you do the old things, you're moving backwards. That's one. Number two, be resilient. Do not allow others to just knock you down. Get back up, keep moving forward. And three, share what you learn. Don't hold it yourself. Knowledge is power, but it's even more powerful when you share it because it helps you to learn more and it helps others to follow your lead, making you a natural leader.
Brilliant. I have a goosebumps, really. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bijan, for being our speaker today. I do believe that next session will be also not so far ago. And we will talk again about leadership and other topics. But I do invite everyone to join our next webinar, which will be already the end of month, 28th of May, with Sarah Mortimore, and we will talk about HACCP practices. And it's also one of the strongest and really powerful speaker in the industry. So I really persist on registering and attending this webinar. So, and to everyone who attended our today's session, a big thanks from myself. And see you on next session. Have a good day, evening, morning, in whatever time zone you are now, and see you on next academy. Bye.
Thank you, Lena. Bye.